The US-Israel war on Iran is already sending oil prices soaring and choking global trade routes. Just imagine, even if Iran's Ayatollahs are eventually pushed out, any new government in Tehran, even a pro-American, will inherit a shattered economy and enormous war damage bills. To add to this, if the American allies win, they will likely also seek war reparations. What if the real cost of this war lasts far beyond the missiles and airstrikes? The worrying part is, many analysts now believe that the easiest way for Iran to recover that money will be to squeeze the world at its weakest point, by taxing ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow channel that carries around a fifth of the world's oil. The US-Israel campaign has torn through Iranian military and energy assets, disrupting exports and triggering the biggest weekly jump in US crude prices since the early 1980s. Now remember, the reconstruction will cost tens, perhaps hundreds of billions of dollars over years, at a time when sanctions already limit Iran's access to capital markets and foreign investment. Any post-war government will come to power on promises to rebuild, stabilize the currency, and restore basic services, but it will also face intense domestic pressure to make the attackers pay. Israel and others, for their part, are likely to seek their own reparations for missile strikes, drone attacks, and shipping incidents, creating a web of competing damage claims that no quick peace deal can settle. That is the seedbed in which long-running, almost permanent levies on international trade tend to grow, which will have a long-term impact on global inflation. It has happened to Germany after the First Great War, giving rise to one of the most brutal dictators in history. And as social experiments and experts prove, external regime changes only add to anger among citizens. What if a worse Khamenei rises? The logic is brutally simple. Iran sits on the northern shore of the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which more than 20 million barrels of oil and large volumes of LNG flow every day, roughly a quarter of global seaborne oil trade. Control of that geography offers leverage not just in war by threatening to close the strait, but far more in peacetime, by taxing the ships that need to pass through it to avoid high costs. This is not a hypothetical idea dreamed up in the current crisis. In 2019, senior Iranian lawmakers openly floated plans to charge tolls on foreign ships transiting Hormuz, arguing that Iran should be paid for providing security in the waterway. Western analysts at that time condemned it as a form of extortion, noting that it clashes with established rights of navigation, but it showed how Tehran already thinks about monetizing Hormuz. A future cash-starved post-war government facing colossal war reconstruction bills would have an even stronger incentive to revive and formalize such fees, potentially framing them as a temporary war recovery tax that, in practice, never really ends. For global trade, that would mean an extra, politically driven cost layered on top of already surging insurance premiums, war risk surcharges, and rerouting expenses that carriers are now paying as Hormuz traffic is disrupted and some lines halt transits. The result is a world where the costs of this war linger not just in history books, but in every freight quote and fuel bill. Even after the pullback, prices might remain far above pre-war levels, and analysts warn they could easily spike again if shipments stay disrupted. Energy analysts already warn that this conflict is likely to have prolonged effects on markets, with oil up more than 25% since the war began and US gasoline prices jumping in a single week. But the deeper shift may be political. By normalizing open warfare around Hormuz and demonstrating how quickly prices explode, Trump's campaign in Iran has reminded every future government in Tehran how much leverage and revenue lies in that narrow channel. Even if the rockets fall silent and the Ayatollahs fall from power, the incentive for any successor regime to fund reconstruction by taxing or otherwise monetizing Hormuz traffic will remain. Those charges, once in place, are likely to endure far longer than this war baked into shipping contracts. passed on to consumers and keeping the world on edge every time a tanker enters the Gulf. In that sense, the conflict has not just shaken today's markets, but it has set up a more expensive and uncertain future for global trade that could last for decades.